facts, truth, trust. I've been saying this over and over for almost a decade. In 2016, when we actually began to feel the impact of information operations, I realized what was under attack was not democracy, it was our shared reality. So the three sentences I say over and over: without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. We cannot have journalism, let alone democracy, because democracy occurs in a shared space, right? You can't solve existential problems like climate change. Al Gore said, you can't fix climate until you fix that little democracy problem we have. So, facts, truth, trust. In 2022, I wrote a book. The question there is very simple. What are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? The first casualty in our battle for facts was how many people were killed in Rodrigo Duterte's drug war. It went anywhere from 8,000 to more than 30,000 in less than 3 years, right? So now we don't know. Whenever you hear a number, no one can verify it, because that is what happens with our public tech stack. In my country, it was, what will you sacrifice for the truth? But now the question is for the whole world, because the impact of all of this is global, right? The impact on each of us. Lies spread 6 times faster. That's an MIT study from 2018. When you say a lie 1,000,000 times, it becomes a fact, right? So if you don't have that, then you have the breakdown of truth and trust. You put it together in a group. March this year, VDEM in Sweden said that 72% of the world is now under authoritarian rule. 72%. And the head of VDEM, Stefan Lindberg, said that by the summer, if the trends in America continues, democracy dies. Did we all wake up and look at what was happening in LA? So, this book has been translated to almost 25 different languages. Each culture slightly different, because what tech has actually shown us is that when you hack our biology, regardless of language, culture, or geography, you can manipulate us all the same way. This is Japanese, Korean, Mandarin. I like this one. It's Georgian. And in Georgia, the protests that have been going on for more than 186 days now. 186 days was like a month ago, so I haven't looked today. But they used the book. You know, the woman, the first journalist who was arrested, instead of, when she was behind the screen, she just held up the book. It's been recently translated to Mongolian. Why am I telling you all of this? Because everything that is happening here today, globally, it's all there. I wrote 400 pages. My editor said, do you want everyone to know everything you know, or do you want them to read it from cover to cover? Cover to cover, so he chopped 200 pages. But if you want the data, I'll give it to you. The Philippines went from hell to purgatory, right? And today, I have 10 criminal charges that were filed in 2019 for a little over a year. I've won 8 of them, but I still have 2 left, and it's been almost a decade since Duterte took office. He took office in 2016. So I'm still fighting for my rights. Here's the reality. You have to know, what are you willing to sacrifice now? Because when you lose your rights, it takes so much more energy and effort to claw them back. Let's talk about the tech, and I'll say it quickly. This is all artificial intelligence. It's been there for almost more than 70 years, and artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. This is the hype that you're living with. And if you're a journalism conference, if you care about journalism, you need to care about the tech. Here's the harms, and again, this is quite personal to me, but surveillance and digital colonialism. The Cambridge Analytica whistleblower said, colonialism didn't die, it just moved online, which is kind of true. The biased and oppressive AI systems, please come to me later, I'll be around all day, I can give you all the data for every single one of this. Exploitation of data workers, we in the global south, clean it up so you can use it in the global north. Environmental damage. How many people have really looked at this? And then finally, this is the one I've lived through. I could still go to jail for almost 7 years. It's been almost a decade. And we keep going, because you have no choice. What you do, and you guys in this room are so powerful now. Every day you do not use your power, you lose more and more of it. You become weaker. So, let me make it personal for me, because in the book, you'll actually see the macro of what's happened, right? Social media, in 2016, exponential attacks bottom up, 90 hate messages per hour. That was what I lived with. It's meant to use free speech, to stifle free speech. In what's happening in LA right now, you guys, Americans are being inundated with disinformation. Disinformation. Misinformation is like a game of telephone, but it's when someone else uses disinformation to gain power and money that you have to worry. Generative AI rolled out November 2022, the same week that my book came out, right? Why am I saying this? Because now, if you see video of me, and we saw Russian scam networks pushing out video of me that look like I'm telling you to buy crypto, I've never said it. I've never done that, right? And then the most recent one that I love is, I am telling people with diabetes to throw away their insulin. I didn't do that either. We are moving into the enshittification of the internet, the way it's designed, right? That's Cory Doctorow's word. So I'm just saying that I am making a bet that we do not want to live in an environment that's extremely polluted. I became a journalist because information is power. That's where the attack began. Facts, truth, trust, right? So in September 2022, 300 Nobel laureates, civil society groups came together and signed a 10-point action plan. Our target was Europe, because Americans were sleeping. You gotta wake up now, I hope, right? I summarized the 10-point action plan. And we did it at a time when the EU was looking at the Digital Services Act and Digital Markets Act. Big tech lobbied to the tune that year of 125 million euros. But these are the three things that we need, and we need today. Stop surveillance for profit. Because we are being manipulated. Data, your data, when you're on this thing and you do something, whether it's your steps or whether you're on social, on Facebook, which is literally creating a clone of you. Consumer Reports said more than 2,300 big data sets to clone each of us. Then AI comes in and creates that motherlode database that micro-targets you, sells your weakest moment to a message to a company or a country. Right? Company or country. So stop surveillance for profit. Whole big book, 750 pages by Shoshana Zuboff. We didn't even have a name for it until 2019. Surveillance capitalism. 2, stop coded bias. Because if you are a woman, LGBTQ+, if you're brown or black or ethnic, if you're marginalized in any way in the real world, you're further marginalized online. And then 3, journalism as an antidote to tyranny. I have 6 minutes left to tell you about the solutions. But there are. These are 2 success stories, and then I want to chat with Sara because the destruction is done. The question for you is, what are you going to do to create a better future? These are our answers. We have 3 pillars, and this was always the beginning of Rappler: technology, community, and journalism, right? Technology, journalism, and community. This is called the Facts First PH Pyramid. We did this data pipeline that went from here to here, about 150 different groups coming together. We rolled this out in 2022. It would have rolled out in 2021, but the Nobel got in the way. But of course, it made it easier to organize, right? So what we did, 16 news groups, 116 different civil society groups here. Fact checks, we did it 1 a day, but this mesh layer, the distribution, when you create journalism, you forget it has to get distributed. We no longer have that power, so you have to create the distribution network. And in this mesh, we told everyone, a member of every single one of those 116 groups, of the 150 groups, share that fact check with emotion. and you cannot use anger. And what we found when we mapped that was that inspiration spreads as fast as anger. Social media, our public information ecosystem today, encourages the worst of humanity, the worst of who we are. Do not forget how good we also are. Can you imagine a journalist is telling you we're good, right? We are. The third layer, universities, because news organizations are weakened. We've been under attack forever. 17 years if you go to Freedom House, and far longer if you go to VDEB. The universities every week did a press conference to show the meta-narrative that's seeded and then is pounded opportunistically. And finally, when we rolled it out, we had 6 groups, left, right, and center, because we needed to actually be protected. And when we rolled Facts First PH out, the Solicitor General in the Philippines filed a case against, me again, for prior restraint, because they said fact-checking is prior restraint, right? The fantasy becomes reality. Anyway, I won that case, for the record. Anyway, so what we did when we mapped it, and you can do this with data, is we found 4 distinct communities. The activists clustered together, the artists clustered together. These are incredibly important for journalists to harness. News groups and our people who come around facts, they clustered together. But here's the part that I learned is faith is incredibly important. And when Pope Francis called in 2023, I visited the Vatican at least 4 times in less than 2 years, right? Because that's 1.4 billion people around the world. This is the moment we took over the center of the information ecosystem in the Philippines. This is about information integrity. This is about a shared reality. The blue, that's the source. The orange, one more time, go. Blue is the source. The orange are boundary spanners, so they spread it further. And that yellow, that's the reach. You can map it, right? But here's the thing. Only one of us, there's only one of us in both the physical world and the virtual world. So when we're manipulated online, we're manipulated in the physical world. If you change the way you feel, it changes the way you act, the way you move in the world, the way you vote. Last, I'm on time. This is the most important part, and I'm gonna leave you with how you yourself can try it. We decided 3 years ago, that was when I began winning my cases, that I can't keep begging big tech. I can't keep begging Silicon Valley. And we began to build a public interest tech stack. Little Rappler is little. We're 120 people, and most of my money had gone to defend ourselves, right? So I took the little we had, and my editorial head will always tell you, she spends more on tech than she does on journalists. Yes, right now, but we need to scale it. So what is it? Deliberative technology, you can read it here yourself, but we chose the Matrix protocol, and I'll tell you why. It is open source, it is end-to-end encrypted, it's decentralized, and these are the challenges we addressed. I do not want to be insidiously manipulated, right? Who uses the Matrix? Not the movie, not the red pill and the blue pill. The Matrix came out in 2014. It's based out of London, like DeepMind, right? And there are more than 150 million addressable users. 150 million. It doesn't, like AT protocol is kind of similar, which is blue sky. I don't want to do one-to-one to one-to-many. I don't want to isolate us. I believe in a shared reality. That's what we built, and what we did is a new use case. Who uses the Matrix protocol? Oh yeah, those countries that care about data privacy. All of the government websites of France, Germany, Taiwan built on the Matrix protocol. So I looked at all of this, and we built a news use case, because the end goal is to federate a global news information ecosystem. We have a proof of concept in the Philippines, helped us move from hell to purgatory in our midterm elections last May, even better, right? So look at the people who are already using these. Governments and intelligence and military. What about us, ordinary people? Why are we not protected? That's why we did what we did. This is the way it works. If this is Rappler, this is, I don't know, call it CNN. And then call this, oh yeah, maybe New York Times, right? Bob follows Rappler, Alice follows CNN, and Dan follows New York Times. Bob, Alice, and Dan can talk to each other without us ever having to share their data. It's data privacy. You can also bridge, right? You can go onto, what's that WhatsApp? Oh yeah, oh, but that's owned by Meta for the record. If you use that, you're giving them your data. So we can bridge into there. We don't have to take our communities out of all the places we put them in. We just build a bridge and we can bring them in. I'm moving through this fast. Last, the future is chat, right? OpenAI, Gemini, all of these things have at best a 16% error rate. As a journalist, let me just say that quickly. It doesn't hallucinate. It has a 16% error rate at best. And when it's used for weapons, 16% of the time it is wrong, right? So what did we do? We zoomed it in. What if we only feed our bot facts? What if we anchor it in facts? Because none of the tech is anchored in facts, right? I care about facts. So what we found is that we built an ontology, a knowledge graph, and a graph rag. And this error rate for here, 2%. And we want to roll that out, right? The goal is we integrate it. Now the machine on Rappler actually creates the pages when you pull it. And you can ask the chatbot that you can have one step or multi-step. Last, because I'm out of time, this is what we did. We rolled it out very quietly in Christmas, but it's been a year and it's working for us. But here's the main goal. It's not just about journalism. It's about communities of action. That's the goal. Without all of us in the same shared reality, we live isolated lives. We live epidemics of loneliness. We cannot have democracy. And it will be violent, right? Because that is what is being pumped through us. Online violence is real-world violence. Let me end with this. Try it, please. And know, I can tell you how much. Oh yeah, it's only for you in this. We spent $2 million to build it. That is all. And when it is out, all you do is scale. We need a place where there is information integrity, where we are not insidiously manipulated, where real people can talk to real people, and we can think. It works. Sara, come on up. Sara, Lomax, President and CEO of WURD Radio and co-founder of URL.
URL Media, yeah. Yes, thank you. And you did that without notes and everything. What an honor. I have seen you speak. I have watched a thousand cuts. I have read a lot of your work. And the thing that I am so inspired by is your consistency, your passion, and your joy that you bring to this work. And so, you know, you're interviewed a lot, so I'm going to ask you the questions that I want.
Please. Although I want to ask her questions, too.
So one of the things you just said was, if you're marginalized in the world, you're marginalized in social media. And so I want to know from you, like in this moment, and you know, we know that globally, people of color are the majority. And one of the reasons that people of color in the US right now are under such threat is because we are becoming the next majority here.
Yes.
And I think that has, you know, a white supremacist framework freaked out. And so I'm curious, are there specific strategies or protocols that are being developed to address the marginalization of people of color in the social media sphere as we're trying to address that in the, you know, real world?
Nothing that has scaled. It really works against us, right? But here's the thing. You have to admit certain things to yourself, and I'll talk to you as Americans and pretend I'm not. You know, American fascism, and this is where we're turning, the world is turning this route, and I've lived through the breakdown of law and order. Impunity is what we're fighting globally, right? Whether you're Putin or Netanyahu or Somalia or Sudan. Impunity in the real world, impunity in the virtual world. No one has stopped any of this, right? Segregation is illegal in America. And yet, what do you call micro-targeting? That's segregation. It is happening online. That's how you create cluster groups. In Brazil, the reason why Bolsonaro won was YouTube took a far-right fringe figure in its recommendation algorithm, consistently paired it with every single conspiracy theorist until Bolsonaro's base grew. He moved, media picked him up, and he became president. So Brazil and the Philippines are similar. We were in hell and we're in purgatory now, right? We're coming out. So here's the thing. America's history is I mean, you have the Ku Klux Klan. It's been there,
yeah,
right?
It's pretty horrific.
So you know this is there. American fascism is white supremacy. And yet we are a country of immigrants. My father, my stepfather, my sister is here. My father is Italian-American. I'm Filipino-American. And this is the strength of America. So what do? We are now losing everything we have gained. And what you're talking about, this was a survey that was released in 2008. And that became a rallying cry. And we have been manipulated. The tech has been on that side. So what do we have to do? I'll tell you how we survived. We moved from the virtual world to the real world. Rappler could not have survived if we had stayed in the virtual world, because it was literally, and Ramona Diaz is here, the film, it was literally death by 1,000 cuts. So what we needed to do was to build our communities of action, just as we're speaking now. Ask me anything. I want to ask you, what are you doing? Here's the best part about this. America has changed from the time of the Ku Klux Klan. It has, significantly better. Yes, there are undercurrents. The same way in the Philippines, we still have a Communist Party, but the Communist Party is different. I'm saying take those losses, bring them back forward. You have to demand better, because if you're quiet now, we will regress to the Stone Age.
So I will just push back slightly on that. Yes,
please.
The sanctioned lynchings, people gathering and taking pictures of people being strung up on trees and sending them out to their family and having a good old time. Those days are over, but what we have is mass incarceration.
Yeah.
We have, now that marijuana is legal, still have lots of Black people who are incarcerated for something that is now legal. So the systemic aspects of white supremacy are very much intact. And what we are living through right now in this current iteration is kind of a rebirth. It is like what the KKK was to Reconstruction. This is what we're living through, I believe, right now. And I think that it will get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. But my next question is really about local media, because you talked about needing to be in person and really creating human connection. And I'm wondering, like, you say Rappler is small, 120 people. For me, I run a really small media outlet here in Philly, which is probably about 40 people. So I'm curious, like, how did Rappler survive? How is it surviving, especially given the work that you do so externally and so much out in the world, but its core mission is to serve that local community. And I'm wondering, what is the business model? Because we know that the platforms also destroyed the business model for local media. So it has cut in so many, talk about 1,000 cuts. The platforms are 1,000 cuts. So what do you say to local community media organizations that are so important now, but are losing their power because the business model is compromised?
Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. I'm going to go back and backtrack into what you had said, into the question, right? So the first is news organizations. You're already under attack here, from the biggest to the smallest. advertising is largely dead. We can see this beginning in January 2023, and this was systematically done by the big tech platforms. Meta, Facebook, which was the largest distributor of news globally, decided to choke traffic, and globally we saw a drop of anywhere from 50% to 85% of direct traffic going into sites, referral traffic. That's one. The second, Google, search. Right? 60% of the traffic to Rappler is search, but then starting in 2023, search generative experience began generative AI bots. And what that meant is that they basically, again, talk about impunity. The bots came in and took all of our content, and then when you search now, you get that box where you no longer have to go to our websites. Right? So again, traffic has dropped. So that's part of the reason we were preparing for this. You need a public interest tech stack. How did we do it? When we came under attack in January 2018, my government called our advertisers, and within 4 months, we dropped 49% of our advertising revenue. We should have died in 2018, but this is why I like it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We were literally prepared for COVID, right? So what did we do? You just saw those maps that you saw. We took our data and tech. And as the tech was manipulating you, we developed how to show you how we are being manipulated. So all those companies that couldn't advertise, because if they did, they would fear reprisals. I couldn't even go to lunch with a CEO of a company because I'd be afraid their company would be attacked, right? They needed to know how they were being attacked, so they became our clients. So data and tech is how we survive, but even that is changing. So I'll back end again. When you said that that the discrimination has gotten worse, it isn't just black, brown, or ethnic, or it isn't just us who look different or who have had institutionalized oppression. America was trying to move forward, right? And some people will say it went too far. But here's the thing. You'll see in How to Stand Up to a Dictator. My cousin is a head of police chief in our town. I grew up in Toms River, New Jersey. And when I literally fled to America, my family came to America after martial law was declared by the first Marcos. And when I came here, America was the beacon of hope. I thought the streets were paved with gold. I knew they weren't when I finally got here. I was 10 years old, but those ideals made me who I am. So I will not move away from that. And that is what's at stake for America today. Because we cannot divide. To go back to the answer, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Right? We cannot divide ourselves today. We must collaborate, 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 from news groups to civil society groups to funders, because you have to redefine what civic engagement looks like in the age of exponential lies. And if you fail, you will take the world with you. The beacon must succeed, right? Because this is essentially, it reminds us that even if you have power, you will voluntarily give up power for the common good. We believe in the common good.
Wow.
Sorry to wake you up this way.
I know we only have 4 minutes. So I really have one question, but I feel like this last election.
I'll tell you how it happened.
Well, I know I want to hear how it happened, but one of the ways it happened is we did not come together. So URL Media is my other company, is a network of Black and Brown media organizations that come together to collaborate, share content, share revenues.
We need to scale.
We need to scale that, absolutely. But the premise was that we as Black and Brown people, Native American, African American, Asian American, Latino, the whole shebang, would be stronger together. And then we have the 2024 election, and we see, a higher number of Black folks voted for Trump, a higher number of Latinos voted for Trump, a higher number of like there was all of this, in my words, betrayal, in terms of aligning with someone who did not have any of our interests at heart, but he captured their imagination and their votes. And so here we are, and everything's being weaponized against Black and brown folks. So this idea of, you know, the vision of democracy is really lost on me. My question, though, because I know we only have two minutes, is how do you carry the weight of everything that you are bearing in terms of the personal attacks, the you know, the lawsuits, you know, like it is a very personal journey that you yourself, Maria Ressa, are walking. And I'm wondering, like, how do you carry that weight with such grace and joy and courage?
Well, first, I'm actually lucky compared to other journalists around the world, right? The attacks on journalists have increased even as the quality of democracy has decreased globally. I'm gonna throw it back to you in this, because if you do not act in this moment, you will be in the same situation I am in. And let me say, you said this earlier, that it is a betrayal of, it isn't a betrayal. It is a manipulation. The Latino-American community, by February 2024, Maria, I can't remember her last name, she heads Voto Latino, right? We were together and she was telling me how the meta-narratives that were attacking, that were targeting young voters, Latino voters, were all about making America, like they were basically being told, you know, why will you vote when America's a colonial power? It's just like done all of these things. There were meta-narratives that were looking to suppress voter turnout. There were meta-narratives. Did you know that in 2016, and this is from the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, Christopher Wiley, he said that as of 2016, there were Facebook groups targeting young men in every county in America. 2016, where were we by the end of 2024? If you go on Rappler now, and I'll send it up Blue Sky, but you know, we did, by April 2024, we took a look at 3 years of data targeting Americans. And we looked at 3 things. You know, we looked at immigration, we looked at abortion, and then we looked at Gaza. Because we went through every single website across the board, left, right, and center. What were the top trafficked stories in America? What were you reading and talking about? Then we went on social media and listed 10 topics, and of those 10 topics, what were the top 3? And that's where we came out, and we found several things. On the immigration conversation in America by April 2024, immigration was the most unhinged from reality, i.e. filled with lies, and it was also the most driven by the far right. Right? What does that mean? I mean, this was before Haitians eat their dogs, which was a lie, right? You are gonna have to get used to a president who lies. We did. And you know what we did? We called out the lie every single time. And guess what happened to little Rappler? We almost got shut down. I almost went to jail for over a century. Lots of things. There are consequences to standing up for the facts, for your community, but you must. And do not lose hope in your community. I was very angry with Filipinos in 2016 because I did feel alone, right? The only reason I didn't is because I have 3 co-founders. The founders of Rappler are 4 women, all roughly the same age. And then we found the smartest 20-somethings we could find. That's how we began Rappler. But the 4 of us had this thing. How did we get through it? Embrace your fear. Know you are going to be afraid. And then the 4 of us, at the worst of times, we had this rule. Only one of us could be afraid at a time. You literally pass the fear. You acknowledge the reality, and you keep walking forward. And the last part, you have no idea where it will end. You don't know, but you walk the path because you must. If you believe in these values, you have no choice. And if you pull your community together, you will do it. Last thing, Putnam's Bowling Alone, right? We have to find a way to bring our communities back together. And I did look to America. I grew up in Toms River where I was the only brown kid in my class. I remember a third-year-old, like, tall giant, his name was George Agan, so don't show this, who was a bully in class, right? But you learn to stand up to a bully. It's really that simple. And you know what? There are more good people than there are bullies. We have to do it.
Agreed, agreed. I think that's a perfect note to end on. I wanted to just get one last little thing. We need to study Black women, because Black women were the ones who showed up 97%
They really did. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah.
So we can study all these groups that kind of defected, but we also need to study how did Black women withstand all of that manipulation and still like come out on the right side of things, in my view.
I think it comes from suffering.
I know we got to go.
Right? I know, we have to go. We really
But go
have
ahead,
to go.
you close us out.
Own your suffering. Share your suffering. We're like a family. My sister and I traveled here together. There will be pains. There will be betrayals. You will pull together because you must. It's that simple.
Yes, and that's the human